And in that spirit, I'm going to cut short your time to discuss this opportunity to see if anyone might make a contribution. So with that in mind, if you have something that you think would be included in this speech, could you please raise your hand? And then I believe the student will come to you with the microphone. Any student wishing to contribute, please raise your hand.
So how India would introduce itself in the conference is by speaking about its development. So India would be relatively saying that over the past few years, we have developed a lot and all the major companies are investing in our country. Not only that, they are even setting up their bases, which makes India a very good financial as well as an investment hub. And relatively, India's climate has been changing and there have been various things that there have been various features and various equipments that have been set up to conquer and to overpower this climate change and pollution. However, India needs much support, and for that we request the members of the United Nations to extend their full support in making India one of the best hubs in the world for investment and for staying and living and residing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other students that would like to offer some thoughts on this matter? Please come back here.
If I was to represent India in MUN, I would have told that we are the world's largest democracy and it's our work to change India. So we are a very developing country and we don't have any obstacles stopping us. We have to be the change to grow to make India a better country and to contribute for world peace.
Okay, and perhaps we can have one more student share their thoughts before we think about the speech.
If I were to represent India, I would say that India is a developing country. That means we need more industries in India. We can't totally cut down on industries because if we do that, pollution will reduce. But with that, the growth, the employment, and the poverty levels and all will fluctuate. So, we need industries, but we need greener industries. We need methods, production processes that are more advanced so that production grows, employment grows, but that doesn't result in pollution. So we request other developed countries to help us with modern processes so that the pollution levels decrease.
Thank you. So with that, we could briefly, perhaps I can if we could briefly take a look at what we've said, there are a couple of key things I think we should all take a look at about this speech. So we start off with this notion of context, right? You need to introduce India as a certain type of country. And these first couple of lines are really good at that. They say not only is India a large company which has attracted a lot of foreign interest, there's also an element of saying, okay, there's also an element of the nature of India, right? It's a democracy. The people are really interested in getting involved. And the comment you made sort of illustrated that the solutions that India is interested in must involve a coalition of people and sort of a democratic approach at its core. At this point, there's a discussion of the need to cooperate globally also. So you start off with the context. India is large, India is developing, and India is a democracy. Then we move to what needs to be done. So there's a discussion of India, the whole world needs to act, not just India. And we need to cut down both on greenhouse gas emissions and on sort of development processes that might create more pollution. And now, so that's sort of step two. Step one was to set the context. Step two is to say, okay, given this context, what do we do? What do we need to address? What path must we take? And then this third comment here was actually really useful because it said, okay, given all that, what are the barriers? What are the things that might define India uniquely? What are the complications we face? And you brought up a very good point, which is that development matters too. And you can't necessarily say, India, you must stop emitting immediately because India is a developing country. And it's not legally fair to say, oh, the United States, France, you can emit as long as you do it, before 1950, 1960. And if you get done developing by 2016, you're fine. But if you wait a little longer, you're not. That's a really complicated notion, and it's very important to express that as well. So if we take a look at this speech, we sort of see the three basic elements of a Model UN speech. Context. Who is India? What do they want? Then, policy. What is India proposing we do about the topic at hand? And then third, the complication, nuance. What really makes Model UN interesting? Which is this really great dilemma of how do you balance this notion of development with this notion of needing to act as a responsible global citizen and address global warming. So, this exercise actually works quite well at demonstrating what Modi actually went for at the Paris climate talks. Modi was really impactful because he recognized both that there's sort of two groups at the conference, right? There's a group of people who are like the United States or France saying everyone should cut emissions immediately. Then there was a group of countries who were developing countries saying, we'd love to cut emissions, but frankly, poverty is an extreme problem and we need to address it. Modi sort of saw this and said, okay, well, India's a really big country and we certainly have elements of both, developed areas and developing areas. As a result, we can help bring people together and have them see common ground. So what Modi ended up doing is he helped negotiate a compromise based on this notion of mutually agreed upon emission reductions. Now, the genius part of what India did was they said, okay, we need to have emission reductions because we need to satisfy countries like the United States and France. But we can't have people coming in and saying, okay, we are the UN, we are some global treaty, this is what you must do. That's almost imperialist, right? There's no way that they're going to understand what needs to be cut better than the country itself. So because of that, Modi also engineered this mutually agreed upon aspect of the negotiation. And because Modi was able to bring together both the developing and the developed world into one sort of compromise, India walked away from the 2015 climate talks that much stronger. And I use this example to sort of illustrate what Model UN really is. You start with ideas, you start with context, you start with expressing yourself. But then you sort of use this whole notion of bringing people together, diplomacy, leadership, finding common ground. And it's that exercise of bringing people together on the basis of your knowledge, your trustworthiness, and your leadership. It's that exercise that is such a valuable part of Model UN and makes it such an exciting challenge. So with that in mind, I briefly wanted to speak to some tips I might have about the Model UN circuit in India specifically. So if I could begin with sort of the traditional perspective on Model United Nations, it's that learning, education, and expressing yourself are extremely important. I don't disagree. It's incredibly important to understand exactly how you can understand facts, research them, and speak about them. But in our mind, it's almost a bit boring. It's a bit basic. We're all extremely smart students, and a lot of you know how to research, and a lot of you, as was just demonstrated, know how to speak. So, in our minds, at Harvard and at many international conferences, learning and expressing yourself, that's sort of a foundation. Understanding the facts, reporting the facts, speaking about the facts. Those are all just basic ideas. They're a foundation, if you will, for Model UN. But what we think is interesting is what you can build on that foundation you take these ideas, you take these types of new stuff, and you build ideas like leadership, strategy, and impact upon them. Because speaking is great, and so is understanding facts, but in the real world, no one at the United Nations remembers, say, who wears the best suit, who knows the most facts, who gives the best speeches. What's remembered are the real policy objectives they secure. Will he give a great speech? But what we remember for him now is securing these real gains for India at the Paris Climate Talks. It's what you do with these facts, it's what you do with these ideas that really set you apart in modern United Nations. And so, international conferences like Harvard ask, what changed because you were there? What is the difference in the things you went? What things did you secure for your own country while being at the conference? And that's an interesting question, right? Because securing is sort of a mean term. The only way you can secure things is by helping people see things in your way, helping compromises come forth, and helping mutual understanding prosper within the setting of a community. And this is an incredibly difficult leadership challenge. We ask you in the scope of 20 hours to go from not knowing the person you're sitting next to working with them to craft incredible speeches and resolutions. It's a challenge. It's also really exciting. So at the end of the day, the sort of distinction I give to you between local conferences and international conferences is that local conferences focus most on building this foundation. But once you've got that foundation built, you don't want to sleep in a foundation, you want to sleep in a house. And to build the sort of house of international diplomacy, international conferences are really good for fine-tuning your approach to leadership and your approach to helping people come together in agreement. So why do we do it this way? Well, the first big reason we do in this way is because we think critical thinking is important. We think that this task of understanding exactly what's going on in the world is really fundamental to, first of all, the value of modern United Nations, and second of all, to what you would get from starting a modern United Nations club or attending a conference. So Modern MUN teaches you how to think critically through things like resolutions, things through me coming up here and asking you to give a speech on the climate, and 100 other things like that. And ultimately, the thing that we're trying to teach here at MUN is to teach you to take, a fact here, maybe a book there, a report here, a strategy there, and take all of these ideas and use them to craft your own individual perspective on what's going on in the community, what's going on in the world. And that's a challenging task. It's also incredibly rewarding because critical thinking matters. When you're creating policy, it's really lies at the foundation of what you might get out of Modern MUN and what you might get out of your professional career.